My name is Anna, and I live in a small blue house on Maple Street in New York. The porch sags just a little when you step on the left side, but it is mine. I worked for years to make the down payment, and every month I send $1,300 to the bank to keep it. It isn't a mansion or anything grand, but it is solid. There's a maple tree out front that drops bright gold leaves in the fall, and in the summer, the windows glow soft in the long light. Inside, I keep a glass jar on the counter for bills, ones, fives, sometimes tens, and if I'm lucky, a 20. Coins tumble in too, and I love the sound they make when I pour them in, like small music that belongs to me alone. That jar has helped me buy groceries when things felt tight, and I trust it more than any credit card. I tell you this because it is the heart of who I am: practical, steady, grounded. My life has always been about building things piece by piece. That morning, on my wedding day, I believed I had built something new: love, a future, a partner to share it all with. I believed Colin was part of that picture. Colin was not like me. He was born into wealth, the kind that whispers through dinner parties and shows up on trust fund statements. He told people he was comfortable, but I knew he had access to more than $3 million through his family. He had that ease about him, the way people who never worry about bills walk into a room. His suits were cut sharp, his shoes never scuffed, and he liked to pay for dinners with a black card that carried no limit. At first, it dazzled me. I thought maybe we could blend, my careful saving and his endless comfort. Maybe together, we would find a balance. But that morning, when I walked into the bright hall in Manhattan, my balance was shattered. I stopped cold at the door. The guests had already gathered, the air buzzing with the chatter of cousins, colleagues, and neighbors from the city. Flowers arched above the stage, white roses mixed with soft pink peonies, the kind of arrangements that cost thousands of dollars but looked effortless. My bouquet felt heavy in my hands, though I had barely lifted it. And then I saw her, Mara, my sister. She stood at the front of the hall, the place where I should have been, wearing my wedding dress. The satin shimmered under the lights, hugging her shoulders, spilling to the floor in perfect folds. She looked radiant in it, though I knew every stitch of that gown had been chosen for me. And she wasn't alone. She held Colin's hand, fingers laced like it was natural, like it had always been her place to stand there beside him. Mara smirked when our eyes met. Her lips curled, and her chin lifted as if she had won a battle. "He's mine now," she said, her voice carrying just enough for me to hear. "And now I am going to be rich." The room tilted. I could feel my heart slam against my ribs, but I didn't move. All the chatter behind me hushed, the whispers spreading through the hall like fire. Guests leaned forward, unsure if they should laugh, if it was some cruel joke, or if the bride they had come to see had just been replaced by her own sister. For a moment, I thought I would crumble, but instead I walked forward, slow and steady. My veil brushed against my cheek, soft as a whisper. I leaned close to Mara, close enough that only she could hear me, and I hissed a secret in her ear. "The prenup I had him sign? It gives you nothing if he cheats. Nothing if he leaves in the first year. And he will. You know he will." Her smirk faltered, just a flicker, but I saw it. I didn't wait for her answer. I didn't give Colin a glance, though I felt his eyes on me, sharp and unreadable. I set my bouquet down on the nearest chair, the roses trembling as they hit the wood. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't run and I didn't cry. My heels clicked on the marble floor as if announcing my choice, my freedom, step by step. Outside, the city air hit me, cool and alive. I pulled the veil from my head and let it flutter to the ground. The traffic on the street roared as though nothing had happened inside that hall, as though my life hadn't been ripped in two and stitched back together in one breath. I walked until the hall disappeared behind me, until my phone buzzed so many times I shoved it in my bag and ignored it. I didn't want their voices in my ear. When I reached my blue house, I unlocked the door with hands that no longer shook. I stepped inside and set my shoes by the mat. I slid down onto the floor of the living room, pressing my palms flat against the wood. The afternoon light stretched across the boards like a thin river, golden and calm. My phone kept buzzing and buzzing on the counter, but I let it. Behind me, the The fridge hummed its steady tune. Around me was everything I had worked for. Walls painted with my choices, shelves filled with books I loved, the jar of bills and coins standing firm on the counter. I closed my eyes and breathed. That was my life. Simple, clear, mine. My job in Brooklyn, where I typed reports and balanced numbers until my head hurt, but I left each day with my own paycheck. My blue house on Maple Street, imperfect but steady. My name on the deed, my fingerprints on every door. It wasn't a grand wedding or a promise of riches, but it was something real. And as I sat there, I knew it was enough. I want you to understand this. Betrayal has a sound. It is the silence of a room when people don't know where to look. It is the thud of your own heart when you realize the person you trusted has chosen someone else. But truth has a sound too. It is the hiss of a secret whispered in just the right ear. It is the quiet hum of a fridge in a home that belongs to you, no one else. That day, I missed a wedding. I lost a man who thought money was a shield against consequences. I lost a sister who wanted diamonds more than loyalty. But I found something stronger. I found that I could walk out, that I could stand alone, that I could sit in the light of my own house and know that being enough for myself was the richest thing I could ever be. They went through with it. While I sat alone in my blue house on Maple Street, the echoes of laughter and music still bouncing in my ears, Mara and Colin signed the papers. They stood on the steps of City Hall in New York, their hands intertwined, the sunlight catching on her veil, my veil, and his polished shoes. A photographer caught them in a frame, her smile wide and triumphant, his grin slick and hollow. The picture went straight to her social media page. She plastered it with diamond emojis and captions about forever love. People commented hearts and champagne glasses, as though a filter and a hashtag could cover the cracks I already knew would come. Colin's smile told me everything. I had seen that expression before, the one that didn't stretch to his eyes, the one he wore whenever he was calculating. He wasn't thinking about love or vows. He was thinking about money, appearances, about how this moment could be another performance in his endless play. I had told Mara about that smile. I had told her about the stories whispered at bars in downtown Manhattan, the unpaid tabs, the women who thought they mattered until they didn't, the investments that were little more than lies wrapped in paperwork. She had laughed at me. "You're jealous," she said. "You just can't stand that I found America's dream." But dreams are fragile things. 3 days after the vows, the dream cracked. Colin told Mara he had to fly to Chicago for business. She believed him, or maybe she wanted to believe him, and kissed him goodbye at the airport. She sent me a picture of herself in their rented apartment, sitting on a leather couch with a glass of champagne. "Everything is perfect," she wrote. But perfection doesn't go silent. He never checked in. Not a single call that night. Not a message the next morning. She tried to excuse it at first. He's busy, he's in meetings, his phone must have died. But by the 4th day, excuses crumbled. On their joint credit card, a charge appeared, $9,400 at a private club in Boston. The kind of place where men order bottles with sparklers and spend other people's money while pretending they are kings. By the 5th day, the truth wasn't hidden anymore. A woman tagged him in a photo online. She stood with her chin tilted upward, lips painted crimson, her body draped in glittering silk. Colin's hand was pressed firmly against her waist, his smile wide in that same calculating way. No wedding ring showed on his finger. No mention of vows. Just another night in another city with another woman. On the 6th day, Mara's phone rang. It was a lawyer. His voice was brisk, practiced, as though he had made this same call 100 times before. "Colin is seeking a dissolution of the marriage," he said. He wanted a fast divorce. No drawn-out proceedings, no arguments over assets. Just clean and quick. By the 7th day, the secret I had whispered in Mara's ear bloomed like a harsh light. The prenup, the very one I had spent months negotiating, the one Colin had signed grudgingly when he was still mine, was repurposed by a notary too eager to push papers and a planner too rushed to care. Mara had married under those same terms. And those terms were simple. If he cheated, if he left within the 1st year, she received nothing. Not a cent, and Colin had done both. She got nothing. The ring, the only symbol she had to cling to, was stripped from her, too. He wrote her an email, cold and formal, demanding its return. "It's a family piece," he said, pretending heritage mattered to him. The appraisal said it was worth $42,000. But I knew Colin. He didn't value the memory of a ring. He valued the number attached to it. To him, people were numbers too, useful until they stopped adding to his balance sheet. That night, my phone lit up with Mara's name. I let it ring. I couldn't bear to hear her voice, not yet. But she left a voicemail, her words thin, desperate, pouring too fast as though racing against a clock. "This won't happen to me," she said. "I won't be the one left. You'll see. I'll make this work. I won't be humiliated. This won't happen to me." But it had. I listened once, then set the phone face down on the table. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, my house felt steady, the walls quiet and strong. I knew humiliation wasn't the worst of it. The worst was realizing you had chosen it, that you had been warned and still walked straight into the fire. Mara wanted to rewrite her reality, but the ink was already dry. I thought back to when we were girls, when we played in the yard of our childhood home in upstate New York. Mara always wanted to be the princess, the one rescued, the one adored. I was fine being the guard, the one holding the walls, the one who made sure no dragons crossed the line. I thought she would grow out of it, that she would learn that being adored isn't the same as being loved. But standing in my house, listening to her frantic words, I realized she never had. She had wanted Colin because he sparkled, because he walked into rooms like a promise of riches, because she thought if she tied herself to him, she would rise too. But you can't build a life on borrowed shine. It always fades. The days after their vows told the truth I had carried all along. Colin was a man who loved price tags more than people. Mara was a woman who believed she could outrun the truth if she dressed it up pretty enough. And me, I was the one who whispered the warning, who walked away, who sat in a blue house with coins in a jar and a mortgage in my name. I was the one left standing. And though the world thought Mara was the bride, I knew better. I had chosen not to wear the dress, not to play the part, not to sign my name beside his again. The vows he made were hollow, and the life she thought she claimed was already dust. A week after Mara's hurried wedding and even quicker unraveling, she came to me. I was on the porch of my blue house on Maple Street, rocking gently on the old wooden chair that groaned with every shift of my weight. The evening was warm, the air heavy with the smell of cut grass and the faint perfume of lilacs blooming along the fence. I had just poured myself a glass of iced tea, condensation dripping down the side, when I saw her walking slowly up the street. Her steps dragged, as though each foot weighed twice as much as the other. Her hair, once glossy and free, was pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She wore a dress that had seen better days. Creases ran across the fabric, and a stain darkened the hem. She clutched a small handbag against her chest, as though it were the last valuable thing she had left. When she reached the bottom of my steps, she stopped. She looked at the peeling paint on the railing, the crooked welcome mat, the chipped porch light that flickered when it rained. She stared at the house, as if it might pass judgment on her. Finally, she lifted her chin. Her voice cracked. "Please, let me stay here, just for a while." Inside my house, I could hear the steady tick of the old clock hanging above the kitchen doorway. It marked every second like a heartbeat, steady and dependable. On the table sat my budget notebook, open to a page where I had scribbled out numbers in careful rows. My savings totaled $12,480, a sum built one slow Saturday shift at a bookstore, one overtime hour at the office, $1 bill tucked into a jar at a time. My roof needed repairs. The hot water tank had begun to cough like an old man, and my car insurance was due in 3 weeks. Every cent mattered. I looked at Mara. I remembered the way she had stood at the altar in my dress, smirking, clutching Colin's hand like she had stolen not just a man but a fortune. I remembered the way she had dismissed me when I warned her about him, how she had called me jealous, as though I hadn't been speaking the truth to protect her. She had used my dress as a costume, my love as a prop, and my warning as a joke. The words came out low, but firm. "You can't stay." Her eyes widened, as if she couldn't believe I had spoken them. "Anna, I have nothing," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her shoulders sagged, and her hands shook against her bag. For the first time in years, she looked like the little sister who used to trail behind me in our childhood yard, begging me to play. But I was not that girl anymore, and she was not just my sister. She was a woman who had chosen greed over blood, pride over truth. "You had choices," I said quietly. "You were told the truth. You married a man who loves the idea of money more than he could ever love a person. You let him treat you like a prize, not a partner." Her mouth twisted, as though she wanted to argue, but no words came. She looked past me into the house. I knew what she saw. The thrift store couch with its faded cushions, the lamp with a chip at the base, the shelves filled with books stacked too deep because I refused to throw any away. And she saw the framed map on the wall, labeled boldly, America. That map was a gift from Nora, my dearest friend, who had moved to Europe years ago. She had sent it folded in a card, with a silly note that read, "Remember where you are, and come visit me when you can." Inside, she had tucked a crisp 20-pound note for Lucky Coffee. I had never spent it. I kept it pressed in a book like a leaf between pages, a reminder that luck wasn't what I needed. Hard work and truth had built my life, not luck. Mara's gaze lingered on the map, maybe wondering how a single piece of paper on the wall could mean more to me than her sudden plea for help. I stood, went inside, and came back with a small envelope. I held it out to her. "I'll give you this. $200. It's not a bed. It's not a home. But it's a door you can walk through. You'll have to choose where it leads." She stared at the envelope as though it were both salvation and insult. Her lips pressed tight, trembling. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, with shaking fingers, she took it from my hand. "Anna," she began, her voice almost breaking, "you can't mean this. I'm your sister. You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted, my voice steady as the ticking clock inside. "And I am. You made your choices. I won't let your storm blow through my house." She waited for me to change my mind. She waited for me to break, to invite her in, to rescue her from the consequences she had chosen. I didn't. My jaw stayed tight, my eyes unflinching. At last, she turned. Her shoulders hunched forward, her steps heavy on the sidewalk as she walked away. She didn't look back. The envelope hung in her hand, small and fragile, like the last thread of connection between us. I sat back on my porch chair, my iced tea still sweating on the table beside me. The evening settled around me, warm and thick, the lilacs sweet in the air. The clock inside ticked on, steady as always. I had told her the truth before the wedding, and I had told her the truth again now. She didn't want it then, and she didn't want it now. But truth doesn't bend just because we wish it would. She had chosen Colin. She had chosen the shimmer of wealth over the solidity of love. And when it all fell apart, she wanted to fall back on me. But I had carried her weight before. This time, I let her carry her own. The porch creaked beneath me, the sky shifted to deep indigo, and the street grew quiet. I lifted my glass of tea, cool against my palm, and took a slow sip. My house, my rules, my peace. She had walked away, and I had let her. For the first time in weeks, I breathed deep and easy. Spring came late that year. The cold clung to the sidewalks of New York long after March had packed its calendar away, and the trees stood bare like stubborn old men refusing to move on. But by May, the lilac by the fence finally bloomed. Its purple blossoms stretched toward the sunlight, a reminder that even after seasons of silence, beauty insists on returning. I would sit on my porch in the evenings with a glass of iced tea and breathe it in, letting its sweetness fill the quiet spaces inside me. The porch itself had been groaning under my weight for months, the boards soft from years of rain. My neighbor Daniel, a man with silver hair and hands hardened from years of carpentry, noticed me testing each step before walking fully onto it. One Saturday morning, he leaned over the fence and said, "I'll fix that porch for you, Anna, $150 and 2 cups of coffee." He smiled, knowing I'd never let him go unpaid for honest work. I handed him $200 when he was done, the bills folded crisp and neat. His hands had done what mine couldn't, and that deserved more than the asking price. Life settled into a rhythm after that. On Sundays, I walked to the corner store, bought a carton of milk, and checked the bulletin board for odd jobs, dog walking, tutoring, yard work. I didn't need the extra income badly, but I liked knowing my hands could do more than type reports in an office. I liked how my life fit in my hands, small, steady, earned. There is a kind of holiness in folding clean laundry, in sweeping the porch Daniel had repaired, in placing another dollar bill into the jar on my counter and hearing it whisper against the others. And yet, sometimes, when the night was too still, my mind wandered. I thought of Colin moving from city to city, slipping into rooms with no windows, rooms filled with soft leather chairs and dim lights. I could picture him pouring drinks he never paid for, laughing too loud, flashing his black card like a trick, spending other people's dollars as though the pile would never run dry. Other times, I thought of Mara. I wondered if she was finally learning how to be alone, the way I had learned it years before, when silence felt like a punishment. Loneliness teaches sharp lessons, lessons no one volunteers to take. I did not wish her pain, not really. I wished her truth. Truth is hard, but it speaks clean. It doesn't rot or fade. If she found it, she might finally stand on her own 2 feet, even if it took years. One evening, as the lilacs pressed their perfume into the air, I pulled an old book from the shelf. Tucked between its pages was the crisp 20-pound note Nora had sent me years ago from Europe, folded neatly with a silly postcard. I smoothed the paper between my fingers. Nora had written, "For lucky coffee," as though a single note could change the tilt of my life. But I had never used it. I didn't believe in luck. I believed in the way $12,480 in savings was built, 1 hour, 1 bill, 1 step at a time. Still, that night, something shifted in me. I sat at my desk, pulled out a sheet of stationery, and wrote her a letter. "I don't need luck," I began. "I have a house that holds when it rains. I have work that pays me in money and in pride. I have a name that I chose for my mailbox, a porch that carries my weight, and a jar that sings when coins fall into it. I'm keeping my dollars for gutters and groceries. Send the luck to someone who needs it." I tucked the 20-pound inside the letter and sealed it, pressing the flap shut with a quiet satisfaction. The envelope sat on the table, waiting for the morning post. The blue paint on the walls glowed softly under the lamplight. The jar of coins on the counter was almost full, the paper bills stacked neatly inside like a secret garden of security. I smiled at the quiet. Not the silence of betrayal, but the quiet of peace, the quiet of a house that knows its owner. This is my story. I did not get the wedding I planned. I did not walk down the aisle in my gown, nor did I bind my life to a man who valued money more than people. Instead, I got something else. I got 4 rooms and a roof in America. I got a life paid for 1 bill at a time, a porch that doesn't break under me, and a map on the wall that reminds me where I am. I did not rescue the people who used my love like a ladder to climb into someone else's fortune. I did not pour my savings into saving them from themselves. I helped myself stand up straight, and that is no small thing. When I turn off the light at night, the house settles around me. It creaks softly, but not with fear, only with memory. It knows my steps, the rhythm of my shoes on the floorboards. It knows my voice, the hum of a tune I sometimes sing while cooking. It knows I chose it, this house, this life, this truth. And I chose myself. That is worth more than any ring,